Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Aquaponics on a Budget. And I am so glad to have you here. Uh, you remember last week? Give everybody a minute to get in here. You remember last week we added these extra grow beds, and they are working wonderful. I still haven't been able to get the rocks yet, but you know that day will come. Everything else is growing good and looking good. But today, I wanted to talk to you about the pros and cons of aquaponics versus dirt. Now, a little bit about my history. I was in the greenhouse business for 20 years, commercially growing for Super Kmart. So I grew in dirt all the time, you know. And, you know, I thought there was no better way to grow than the dirt to get the proper nutrients with the worm castings and that kind of stuff. You'll see my perfect dirt video. But I want to offer you a different scenario. I think aquaponics, it outweighs growing in dirt. I know. And it's shocking to me because, you know, in my attempts for homesteading, it's always been the back, you know, and my backbone, you know, because I mean you're out there working in the dirt. I mean that's nothing better. I love it, but that's just it. You're working every day in the dirt. When you have a garden, you're weeding and you're hoeing and you're plowing and you're doing all that. Whereas, you know, aquaponics, once your system is going, then you're just planting and harvesting, you know, and once a year you might have to clean out the rocks to get out the organic material. But if you put worms in there, you really don't have to do it once a year. It's once every 3 or 4 years. So, you know, and you know, it's coming and looking at your system and, you know, and playing and piddling, you know, that's being aware of your plants and everything. So, you know, that's different than a garden because and I'm not saying growing in dirt is bad because or by any means it's physical work and it's hard work and I still have grown the dirt. One day I will have this whole entire greenhouse aquaponics. That's how much I believe in the aquaponics system. But I'm giving away the show. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of aquaponics. Okay. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Just giving y'all the ending. You know, he's already got the winning touchdown. When I say winning touchdown, so you might as well just go home, right? But anyway, let's talk about the pros of aquaponics. All right, and one thing is obviously is that, you know, physical work, physical labor. The biggest pro of aquaponics is the lack of physical work. I mean, the lack of back-breaking work. I know a lot of people have tractors and plows and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that hard on them to you know, to till up the ground, but still they got to get out there on the tractor and they got to do it every year. Whereas I don't have to get physically exhausted, you know, working my aquaponics. Another pro is fertilizer. You don't need fertilizer. You don't have to worry about the condition of the dirt. It's I got a guest here.
Hey everybody.
It's full spectrum survival. Full spectrum survival.
Okay, so you were doing pros and cons, right?
Yeah, pros and cons.
Okay. Fertilizer is huge. I mean, yeah. So just so you know, when I got here and I saw the fish and how they were flourishing, I was taken back. So I told Daniel that it would be a good idea if we could show you guys after he gets ready one of the bigger fish and what they look like, how healthy they look. I mean, they're amazing. It's like you just took them out of a farm somewhere, but what they're doing is producing food that you can eat and then producing the plants after that. So perfect.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You get fish and salad with your dinner.
That's right. Yeah.
That's another pro. I mean, fish and salad. And another pro is the media. Once you buy it once, you don't got to buy it again. So, but now that is a con of the aquaponic system is the cost, the initial cost. Of course, y'all know what I have into the system by my other episodes and my other videos. The cost of the whole system is the initial cost. I mean, once you get it and the initial cost is paid for, then you don't have any more expenses. You know, you can critique and add on, but I promise you'll be like me. You're like, well, I can add on a whole nother system and add on a system to this and add on more to that. So everybody see Anna? She's sitting there knocking on the system, and I'm like, what is she doing that for? She's been planting all day. That's
No, not planting. I killed a plant, then I started planting the same thing again.
Oh, she killed a plant and then she started planting the same thing again, accidentally. But it's okay.
So you said the initial cost is really the upfront of the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably important for people to know that you don't have to look for an aquaponics system like they're going to show you to sell you for $20,000.
Oh, exactly.
You don't want that super primo polished look, because all you're going to be doing is growing fish poop and plants in it. So you don't want that $20,000 system. You want a functional system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Daniel has here, is a very functional system that works very well and does exactly what it's intended to do.
Yeah, on a budget.
That's right. Yeah.
Aquaponics on a budget. That's who I am, and I like that. So, but yeah, the whole system is where it stands right now. I roughly have $300 in the entire system. So, it's fixing to get a little more, but I'll keep y'all in touch and on exactly what I spend and everything. So, all right. Well, all right. Let's talk about a few. What you got your axe? You gonna?
I was just working. Yeah. Right.
Oh, he was working out there. Let me show him that real quick. This is an ultimate awesome axe. It is lightweight and everything. And we were up by the wood pile, and we were going to split some wood. And he goes, "Well, let me try it with this." And I was thinking,
he said he had a big smile on his face. He said, "Okay, I'll let you try it, because it's hard. It's hardwood. It's oak out there.
yeah,
And you usually have to have a big, heavy hand on it. You know."
yeah. And usually I use a mattock and and split it. But this thing, it was going even with it was going this far into the wood every whack, and it's so lightweight. You could swing this thing all day long.
Yeah.
And
It's definitely a preparedness-minded axe that you're going to keep it on your backpack and you're going to walk around with it, and you can take a 5-mile hike with it, and it's not going to weigh you down.
yeah, exactly. This is light. I mean, this is nothing. And I was really, really, really impressed. And I even said, I got to get me one of those. Because my axes are heavy because, and my maul and all that, because I think you have to have that heavy weight to whack that wood in half.
I have a little one that I help set with.
Yeah, she has a little hatchet that she helps play with.
Okay, so Teresa has a great question. She says, how large do your fish get to, and when do you know it's time to harvest them? So I think let's tie that in. If he's willing to, I want him to grab out a fish that he can show you one that's pretty near harvest, right?
Yep. Okay. Well, if he doesn't mind covering my show and talking a little bit about aquaponics, let me buy him.
So definitely, that's a great question, Teresa. And I think when to harvest is it's multifaceted, because you're going to harvest first when you have to. If you need the food, you're going to harvest. If it becomes a feasible, growth period of the fish where you're not going to introduce more work and more loss just by harvesting it, but also it's when you feel the need to. So if you have some overcrowding because they're getting too big, you harvest a couple. If you're not ready to eat them, you just process them, can them, do whatever you need to do to preserve them. You can salt them, dry them out, and that way you don't have any waste. One of the biggest facets and the biggest benefits that I see with Daniel's system is that it is it's stepping. And that's some of my favorite parts of pretty much everything about homesteading or everything about survival and preparedness is to take that step up and step down method. So he has his, all the way from his fry to the small stages, medium, large, and at the large he harvests. And he can walk you through the individual stages and show you exactly where, where the fish are at that point in time and exactly what period they are and the different nutrients that they're providing, because of course the larger fish are going to provide a different set of nutrients than the smaller fish will. So it's very important, I think, to just know the cycle of the fish and to know, I think Chris is back there. She said about 2 pounds, and that's I think the size that he's going to show you that he's got there. And I think it probably, and Krista, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, but it probably depends on the species too. With tilapia, you're probably about 2 pounds, but you might find some smaller species that might be a little bit less. You might find some bigger species that might be a little bit more, and you just adjust for, accordingly. So I think that having a system like this, where you can still flourish during a time when, if you walk outside, things are just dying everywhere, but you still got great greens in here. And you see us in t-shirts. As soon as we walk outside that door, we have to put long sleeves back on because it's just that much of a difference in temperature. It's really unbelievable. And to know that as you look here, you don't have to have that $10,000 greenhouse system. You don't have to have the insulated glass pane. You don't have to have that. All you have to do is have a system that works for you and one that is able to provide you exactly what you need. Now, and you guys tell us, if you're getting started somewhere, and this is a good question, so if you're getting started somewhere, if you don't even have aquaponics started yet, or if you're just thinking about it, what questions do you have as you initially go into it? Do you want to just start with something small, like a 50-gallon, 30-gallon bucket system? Do you want to do something larger, like an entire single set system? I know Daniel has talked about that before. And oh, he's got it. Okay.
Yeah, I pulled him out. He jumped right in my chest. But I'm gonna try to get him. He jumped on the ground, so he's a little bit muddy. So, oh, gotta watch out. Okay. He's a big guy.
You want me to get him?
Wait, yeah, look at me. Okay, wait. He's slippery, so be careful. Yeah. You're gonna be like me. Oh, grab him by the mouth. Oh.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. There, can y'all see him?
So what size would you say this guy is?
He's about 2.5 pounds.
2.5 pounds? Okay, let's get him back in there before he suffers. And,
I'm gonna put him up.
So he's about 2.5 pounds.
Did y'all see him? Did you check to see if everybody saw him?
Oh yeah, I can see him good. Yeah. Okay, so that's harvest size, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when could you really start harvesting? Could you do it at 1.5 pounds?
Yeah, that's when I do it.
Okay, so Daniel said about 1.5 pounds is where he'll start harvesting, and you just take them as you need them. I think that's great because you kind of have a system of waiting food for you, and all the while it's waiting, it's still providing something necessary. It's providing the nutrients and the system for the rest of your plants to grow. So you might not want fish today, but you might still want your tomatoes, or you might still want your cucumbers or your peppers, and those are still being provided for by the fish that you haven't harvested yet. So I think that's a really important part of it too. Thanks for showing it.
That was awesome. I get some.
Yep, I don't think you could do any better than having the fish flop right on.
Yeah.
You know that wasn't planned when it just popped right out.
Yeah. Yeah, he jumped out, and I was trying to coax them further, into the net, kind of gently as possible, so they don't get too stressed.
Yeah.
And he just jumped right up and hit me in the chest and jumped fell on the ground.
And then he went to a trap, but he got him by his mouth.
Yeah.
Teresa said, "Wow, he's a decent size." So, what type are you going to get one full meal out of for a family of 3 or 4 out of one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we make. Tilapia tacos. We make tilapia enchiladas. We make tilapia spaghetti. We use it like hamburger meat, and it's very, very mild fish meat.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it's so expensive everywhere else in the world. Coming from Florida, I just came here to Daniel's farm. Coming from Florida, you go buy tilapia, and it is outrageously priced at the supermarket, and they call it farm fresh.
yeah,
But it's not farm. That was farm fresh. What you
that
just
was
saw.
farm fresh. Yeah, and he still had a lot of life in him too. He was mad.
and that's another important part. Being so closely connected to your food source, and there is something about that living source of food that you're supposed to be near. As soon as you preserve food, it loses some amount of nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
That fresh food is just so important. That's just like fresh greens, fresh everything else. Okay, so one more question here. Timmy O'Quinn says, is there a ratio? Hold on just a second. Is there a ratio to shoot for pounds of fish per gallons of water or feed a grow bed that will give you the best balance of the system?
That was a show 2 weeks ago, and it is.
It's a heavy math show, so be ready.
Yeah, it's a math show. So you get your pen and paper and a calculator.
Family Roots says, well, if you had to give Timmy just a guess, how many gallons is your big one that those 2-pounders were in?
That was there's 32 square feet in that big one. There's 275 gallons.
Okay.
So 32 square feet, and I have roughly I'd say about 60 in that one.
So just on a rough 60 harvestable fish for near 300 gallons of water. Mm-hmm. And on top of that system, if you were to grow on top of that system, how much could you yield?
Just with the 300 gallons?
Yeah, just that one.
These 10 right here, these 10 grow beds, these 10 half barrels. But I actually have 3 of those 300-gallon tanks, so that's why I'm adding the additional. And I'm going to add the raft bed for growing lettuces and all your kohlrabis and your broccolis and stuff like that. Right. So it'll all be grown in raft beds, and it's just a natural progression. But me and you are going to actually build a hydroponic system, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and take you guys along with, and we're going to, a lot of people have asked Daniel for a no questions asked, start to finish, easily explained hydroponics setup. What can they do on a budget? And so while I'm here, we're going to make like an ebook or something, and we're going to put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort into it, and all of Daniel's research, and give you really point blank, like a picture graph almost, mm-hmm. of every step to take, down to the size of the pipes you need, and make a shopping list for you to go to Walmart or to Home Depot with, and exactly what you need to get so that you can go do it yourself.
Yep, exactly. And the water ratios to the chemicals.
Family Roots Farm says, how many fish do you eat per year?
We eat about 300 fish.
Okay.
And we're a family of 3. We have a lot more than that. And last year I had a big die-off, a big loss. It was my fault. This year we're doing good.
He's still upset at how many he lost this year. Tell him how many.
6.
6 lost, and it was a cold snap that you almost couldn't foresee the ability to change that loss unless you were out here pumping heat into the tank all night long.
Yeah, and it was I lost it on the aquaponics on wheels, and I didn't turn off the pump because I knew the air temperature was going to be cold, so the pump circulated all night, and the water didn't freeze, but the water temperature got down below the 40s, and that's where I lost 6 of the fish.
So I have a question about the system, and I don't want to interrupt. I know you had some pros and cons. I don't know if you got through them all. What's the time lag in temperature variation between the temperature outside and some acclimation of the temperature inside? How is it just constantly revolving? And if it is behind the outside environment, how many hours would you say behind it is? I'll give you an example. So if you're outside and you're working and you notice that dew start to drop and you start to get cold and wet, how many hours until that temperature effect is starting to happen inside?
Usually about 2.5, 3 hours later.
Okay.
But now, it has to be, for it to get freezing in here with no heat, and that's not with no running, no rocket mass or nothing. It has to be in the 20s, low 20s, like 21, 22, something like that, outside for it to even get 32 degrees in here. And even then, there's 2 feet above ground that it doesn't get to freezing temperature.
So, okay, well that's good, because that to me says you've got time to make a change. If something happens and you notice, because if you look up around the world, there's flash freezes. And this is starting to happen more and more frequently over the last decade. And you look back to historical texts, and what would happen is, animals would just be flash frozen. And it would just take place, and they would come upon them later. And so if you notice something like that outside of your greenhouse, you still have 2 hours to come inside and make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And like the other day, I saw that the flash frozen foxes.
Yeah.
Was that your channel?
Depth 2030.
Depth 2030. Okay. But anyway, I saw them frozen, and that was the cold front that I got, and it was cold that I have never experienced before. I know the South. South is, we have a wet cold here, and it's nothing like the North. The North has a dry cold. It's cold. Don't get me wrong, it's cold, but you come down here, you feel the cold through your bones. So
it's definitely a wet cold.
Yeah.
I have people from all over the country and even up as far as Canada, and they come down and they can't believe how cold it is, because it feels actually cold. If you go to Arizona and it might be 20 degrees, but it doesn't feel like it. Where here, and I think it's because in our environment in the South, your body gets taxed by that humidity. And so you have to be careful of that. And it's all about environmental control. And I think that's one of the huge pros of a greenhouse is environmental control. So you can actually control what's going on in here. Mm-hmm. And that's important for humans, and it's important for our food sources.
Yeah, now, if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. The hidden surprise video that I put out of my friend's greenhouse. He doesn't want to be seen on camera, but he heats his entire greenhouse by a rocket mass heater, by pumping water out through the outskirts. And it got down to 5 degrees, and his bananas and citruses did not get affected. So, that's something that I would like to do here. I have a 2,000-gallon tank, and the best way to hold heat is in water. So if we can heat up big volumes of water, it's going to heat up your area that you're growing in. So
and when it dissipates, it's going to dissipate the heat that you do lose right into the environment.
Yes, exactly. And of course, I would like to have put some of those heat sinks where you go down in the ground, you pump hot air into the ground all day, and just have it below the rows. So that's the future. But anyway, but aquaponics, the plants in there, I lost my lemongrass got burned, but that's okay because it'll come right back. Yeah. It'll come right back. But the soil in it doesn't get freezing, no matter what the temperature is in here. It won't freeze in the soil because the water and the rocks are dissipating the heat temperature slowly. So that's why the duckweed never freezes. And if the duckweed ever actually froze, it would die, because if it froze the roots and the top and everything, it would die. That's why you can't just throw it out in a pond somewhere and expect it to live. Because it would just die. So aquaponics preserves the plants too. And I knew somebody right down the road that had an aquaponics system that he made it all the way to February last year, and growing its vegetables outside, just running the water with no heat. So it was pretty good. But yeah, that's another pro. So the cons, I'm sorry, guys. There ain't going to be many cons with aquaponics. Easy work, easy access to plants. Things grow much quicker. I mean, I was showing Brad here that earlier plants I planted in soil, and then plants I planted in.
You can probably see a little bit of them. So just to give you an example, these are the tallest of the ones planted in soil.
Yeah.
And then some of these over here, let me see if you can see. Yeah, you'll be able to see right behind me. These are the ones in the aquaponics system.
Yeah, how fast they grow comparatively in the aquaponics. If the plant gets, and we don't use pesticides here because we believe if a plant gets everything it needs, it has its own insecticide. Now, I'm not talking about these new hybrid plants and hybridized plants that you put in, but your old heirlooms, you give them what you need, you're going to get bigger tomatoes, bigger, better corn. They'll produce their own insecticide, so you don't have to be spraying them with all kinds of junk on them anyway.
Doug and Stacy, hey Doug and Stacy.
Hey Doug.
They say everything depends on where you live, and I think that's important to know your environment.
Yes.
Because I have a question for you, Daniel. If you were to go to Doug's home and build his system, what type of other environmental factors would you have to take building a greenhouse? Would you be like double insulating with plastic? What would you be doing that would help buffer the change in the environment?
Well, he's actually building an awesome greenhouse right now, and I think he's going to double layer with tough deck. That's the drums going off, the temperature change.
Yep, popping.
Yeah, but he's doing a good job. But in building his greenhouse, and it probably will be environmentally protected. But and I would personally build mass in there, water mass, a big tank or something, a big enough tank, and enough sunlight would heat his greenhouse. So, enough to grow cold crops. Yeah. Your broccolis and your cabbages and some of your leaf lettuces and stuff like that. Garlics and onions and etc. But cilantro, yeah.
Doug, if you didn't catch the tilapia, make sure you go back and see it. It's a beautiful tilapia, great size. So I hope you have some like that in your greenhouse. I hope you do an aquaponics system like that. I'd like to see it. I'd like for us both to be able to come and see you and actually get in there with it and get our hands dirty. That'd be great for me.
Yeah, that would be real good. And I hope you make it to our event. I mean, you keep teasing about the event, but I'm pretty much counting on you being there, brother.
You gotta come.
Yeah. Hey.
Yep, have to come.
Yeah.
Maine Grammys Homestead asked, will the lemongrass come back once planted? These were planted already, but they'll come back just because they're still in the system. And like Daniel said, the roots, because they're underneath, will not freeze, and so they won't die. They'll still live, and so you'll see the growth start to push back up.
Yeah, I need to cut all this off lower and catch a spider.
Yeah,
a spider. Yeah, he's gonna. Of course, down there he dealt with a lot worse bugs than here, so
it's a nice release.
Yeah, so yeah, I bet you down there he's still fighting mosquitoes and stuff.
Oh yeah. Doug says can't have them here, and he said no info. Do you mean on the event? I'm going to get with you, and we're structuring everything that's going to happen and take place, and we're going to get you down here. So as long as you set the time away, we're going to get you down here because we want you to be here with us, and we want to build that community and really share the wealth of information that you and Stacy have. And I'd love it if you guys would talk some fermentation. That would be huge to me for you guys to talk some fermentation. So that'd be huge.
Or animal husbandry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, or just living off the grid totally. Just no electricity. That would be awesome. I mean, I have minimum electricity, but still, it's still something. But
Doug says can't have tilapia. He can't have them in his area.
Oh, you can't have tilapia? Oh, they were probably illegal in his area. Even though if you put them in the wild, they wouldn't live there. They would die. As soon as the water temperature dropped, they would die. But you can go with you can't.
How many gallons of water do you need for 300 fish? For 300 fish, how many gallons of water? So you've got 60 and a 270 gallon.
Yeah.
So if you were to bump that up to 300, you would be at 3, 6, 9, 12. probably about 1,500 gallons, right?
Yes, but now that's a trick question there.
Yeah, because that's 300 harvestable size fish, which you don't have at any given time.
Yeah, you don't have that. But now your system at any given time is holding water. Your duckweed growers, that counts. You know, there's 25 gallons in each half duckweed grower. They don't have to be a fish in there.
Right.
As long as the water's circulating through, they're still living in that water. So that's a trick question. Even though I only have 900 gallons of water there, I have, oh, it's raining in here. I have 1,200 gallons total running through my system. That's what I have a video about floating water, and that's what it means. You're balancing water through the system, through all your grow beds. And
okay, so maybe I could help with that because I have this same question. So of course you don't want 300 harvestable fish at any given time unless you're like in sales and selling it. So if you want to have, how many could you eat? If you've got a family of 4, you could feed everybody on probably 1 large tilapia per day.
Yeah.
If that was your sole protein source.
Yeah.
So you would need 30 harvestable tilapia per month.
per month.
So at what stage, and that's only half of what he has harvestable at any time. So he has 2 months of harvestable tilapia. How long, if you're taking 1 out per day, how long does it take you to get the other ones in the step-up stages of growth into that?
Well, it only, from a fry, 6 months to harvestable.
So it's just it's a constant cycle, and just part of your day-to-day is seeing who's ready to go to the big brother tank, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
big brother tank. Now we keep, we have a lot of adolescents, and I have an adolescent tank. Now you can put a lot of fish in there, and I probably have a good 1,000 adolescents. Now they're not going to grow big because they're so crowded in there, and so they'll do without the winter. And as I take out bigger fish out of the big tanks, I'll replace them with 3 or 4 smaller fish, and and keep cycling them like that. So
yeah.
if I take a big one out of the big tank, I'm going to put 3 smaller ones in there. So it just equalizes the system out.
And that is also going to jumpstart their growth, right?
Yes.
Because they're getting into a bigger tank, they're competing with bigger fish, they have more space to grow, everything.
Yes, and yeah, exactly. And they'll finish growing out. So, if everybody's had fish tanks and had that goldfish that, it had for 10 years, but it only ever got that big because he didn't have the space to grow. But if you would ever put him in a pond or something, he probably would have got 10, 15 pounds.
Yeah, right. Or Oscars.
Yeah, or Oscars, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how, the fish, I mean, we cycle them through. We enjoy them as much as possible.
I think that's a good point, is that you take some, it's just like anything else. You cut down a tree, you plant a tree. You harvest your plants, you plant new plants. You harvest your fish, you move the smaller fish up, and that should become part of your harvest cycle.
Yeah, and when the spring, when they start shooting babies out, and actually when I was catching that big one, I noticed there were 3 females that were pregnant, and it's not nowhere close to springtime, so that's not a good thing. I mean, the babies, I just have to probably bring them into the house and actually feed them. But normally I put them in the duckweed tank, and they just live on the micro algae that grows in the duckweed tanks, off the roots and and everything. They do really well. Little insects that get in there, they'll tear them up. But so yeah, but
well, that's another question I have for you. Maybe someone else has it. As the environment in our world continues to kind of go wacky, and it continues to change, probably not for the better. It's better for each individual person to learn aquaponics now when things are semi-stable, than to try to roll into that entire process, changing environmental conditions.
Yeah, I agree 100%. To get into it and start playing with it, because it is trial and error, and water runs downhill, so it's not hard to figure out.
Andrew says, cheers. Yes, I did mean how much water was in the whole system. That was a great answer. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Carol says, could you keep heat for them? I think maybe the rocket mass is what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, keep heat. If I was to use electric fish tank heaters, I could do that. But That's then
Not
a greenhouse.
cost effective.
Yeah, that is not cost effective. That is just will make your meter spin because they're just like a hot water heater that never cuts off.
Yeah.
And y'all just got flushed. So you didn't get cuckooed, you got flushed. But Doug, there's a fish that you can have, and you would have to get them from Georgia, but they're called Georgia brims, and they get 5 pounds.
Wow.
And they'll get 3 pounds in the first year. So if I wasn't doing tilapia, I would be doing those Georgia brims.
So tilapia is 0 to 6 months harvest. Georgia brim gets 3 pounds in the first year. So you're probably pretty near its size because you're probably at 6 months. Your spider trying to come back. So at 6 months with the Georgia brim, if that's the case, then you're probably at near 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So exactly. So that's well, maybe a little bit slower, but I have grown bluegills before, and they before I got the tilapia, and they are picky breeders. So you may not be able to breed them, but you could, I don't know, you could probably turn them loose in your pond and then just go catch them and put them in your aquaponics system. Yeah. And there you go.
2 questions. Carol Hall says, she's the one who asked, could you keep heat for them? She said, rocket with a big entrance. So I imagine a rocket stove, maybe to heat the water to pump through, or just to heat the entire environment. So yeah, that's definitely an option. And you did a video on that. So I would definitely go check that out. And Teresa Dean asked, have you ever thought of trout?
Trout, yes, and trout is a good one. Now, I could grow trout this time of year during the wintertime, as long as the water temperature never got above 60 degrees. Doug, that would be great for you. Trout be full size in 6 months too, and you can do it all. Yeah, okay. We got 2 lines of questions coming in.
Yep. Okay, so why not higher temperature on trout? Here in Florida, down where I was from, worms are real bad anytime the fish get above a certain temperature. Why are you saying no high heat?
The trout can't live in high heat. They can't live in water above 60 degrees. I don't know what it is about them, but they'll start losing their scales and just become lethargic and not doing anything. So they live in streams, and it's always cold water streams. So
how about multi-fish housing?
I don't understand.
Could you keep tilapia in one barrel, Georgia brim in another, or would you have a mix within the system of different fish and the possibility for different things to go wrong?
Well, tilapia, they breed so much that, without even knowing it, this spring I'll have fish in all these tanks, and I'll come in here and I'll find them in the grow beds, living in little bitty tiny puddles, because there's so many of them. They'll just work their way through the whole system because they breed so much. But you could have, it would have to be separate systems, but that's something that I want to do, is actually have oh, you love that. I want to have separate containers where the tilapia can't get to, so that I can have the trout and the bluegills and the Georgia brim, to grow them out.
Teresa, will they cohabitate? So could you keep more than one species in a tub?
You could have the same kind of tilapia. I mean, different kinds of tilapia. You can put them in the tub, and they would probably intermingle. But brim are very aggressive. They would rip off the fins of the tilapia, and they do it to themselves. They'll cannibalize themselves. They're very territorial, cannibalistic. I mean, I even thought about putting catfish into the tank just to clean the bottoms. I don't eat catfish, but they are poop eaters. So
how about for coffee? Can you put those in just to help with the algae if it was necessary, if your algae blew too much?
But that's the tilapia actually love the algae.
Okay.
So I would be shooting myself in the foot because he's trying to get on you. There's a little bitty spider right there.
He keeps trying to make it for my head. He's like, oh, we got close.
He keeps swinging. He's swinging. If I could just hook on there. But yeah, there's many different fish, and if I lose a bunch of tilapia again, I'll move them into the house and just have an aquaponics system that runs out front of the house, which would be really cool. But the tank will be in the house, and yeah, we're getting rained on. So
Okay, so I have another question. If you probably don't want to do more than one species because you are really centralizing the environment. So imagine a pond where, if just given without the access, without mankind hand in it, there will be one predominant species in the pond because of predation, and it's just naturally in them to go and throw off the eggs, eat the eggs, kill the other fish, do all that. So when you have an aquaponics system, you're really crunching it down, and so that probably drives that instinct even harder. So if you don't have the same species, like you said, you could do more than one subspecies of tilapia, but if you added in something else, it would just predate each other.
yeah, you could do brim, the Georgia brim, the bluegills, and all that. They pretty much coexist with each other. But if one of them ever has a problem, coffee, it's like, oh, you're hurt or something. You can live without a fin, but if a brim has a bad fin, then all the other ones will eat it. So I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. But I like brim, and I like to eat brim. It's a nice white meat, and the tilapia a nice white meat. So that's my kind of fish. And I even thought about they have ring-fed bass. Now, and me and Brad are talking about using mealworm. If we can get the mealworm farm hopping, so I might try ring-fed bass where they come to a ring and they eat every day, and then you just keep them that way so that they're not cannibalizing each other. They just know the food's up there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So that's something that I've been thinking about, and I've seen it done. And I even seen salmon raised in aquaponics too. It's a hybrid, and anything hybridized, it kind of makes me go, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, right. Why are you doing that? Right.
Why are you hybridizing this and putting salmon in aquaponics? Everybody wants salmon, but they're hybridizing, so there's no telling what they've done to it. So,
yeah. Now, to get back on your main topic of today's show, the pros and the cons. If you had to say that all of the cons, such as initial cost, upkeep, day-to-day labor, potential loss, things like that, if you had to say all of those cons are there, but is each one of them outweighed by the pro that's directly opposite to it? So initial cost, is that outweighed by money saved in fish and plants?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Now I grow. Now to be to have this opinion, let me tell you, I've grown hugelkultur, back to Eden, worm casting tea. Worm casting tea is my next favorite because we got red clay here, so I can put a plant in there and just feed it worm casting tea, like once a week, and it's gonna flourish just like it was in aquaponics, but not as good, not as fast, but this is good. But I've grown all these other ways, and there's nothing that beats aquaponics. Nothing. I mean, hydroponics, I got to try it, got to give it a shot, but you got to buy the chemical. It's not. Right. It's not a
natural system.
Yeah, natural system. It's not a natural ecosystem, and that's what we're doing, is producing a natural pond in your house, and it's what it works for the circulation.
Suburban Hillbilly came in. Teresa said bluegills are really bony. And I guess that's something to consider too, is ease of cleaning during the harvest phase.
Yeah, now these tilapia, I mean, I'll lay them out and I'll fillet them. It only takes me about 2 minutes to fillet one. I cut right behind their neck, which severs their brain stem, so they don't know what's going on. So they're pretty much gone anyway. And then I'll just fillet them, pull the meat right from the backbone right through, and then you come back and you hold down the skin from the back tail, and then you just go right along the skin. You got a nice white fillet there every time.
Maybe we should do a video on that sometime.
Oh yeah.
Maybe do even a live show on it.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, and we could cook it up and eat it right in front of you. Make everybody hungry.
Charles said he's going to go with bluegill, hybridized bluegill, because they get up to 3 pounds and there's lots of meat on there. And did he finally get on me?
Yeah, he's on your arm.
That's right.
He's making a.
Yeah, the spider's trying to make me part of its home.
Yeah.
So that's good. But I would question how they got them hybridized. Was it just a breeding thing? Was it something that might have happened in nature without mankind's hand?
Yeah.
Or was it like the salmon, like you said, where they are taking really outrageous things, like they're taking protein from species that aren't even fish, and putting them into the salmon to shorten their genomes and everything. So,
to make them not have that gene to want to go swim upstream and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's with the salmon you buy now. You ever wonder why salmon's so cheap? There you go.
Yeah.
You're buying hybridized. Now, I'm not totally against hybridizing. When I have two tomato plants next to each other, a bush plant and say a purple Cherokee plant, and they mix, and I get a bush purple Cherokee, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's two heirlooms that naturally cross. But if you take the DNA from one and you put the DNA from Roundup in there or something, so that your disease resistant, that's what I have a problem with.
Well, Charles says, it's a cross between a bluegill and a sunfish. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Teresa asked, did you have any problems with disease when you introduce other fish supplies? I guess if you introduce other fish species, you could cross some disease over.
Yeah, you could. You don't know what you're getting when you order online. I've never had a problem with disease here. And the system, the plants, the water plants. Now that's totally unique to me. I put water plants in my system that take care of all that. That take care of the spikes and the ammonia and the pH and all that. You got a spike like me chasing them fish and getting that one out there. He probably peed everywhere and was breathing really hard. Yeah. And it's going to cause a spike to the system. And normally you would see in a normal system, you would see discoloration in the plant. But once it works through the water plants, it eats that. It takes care of that, so that I don't have that problem. And disease, same thing. Works like a giant filter.
Well, Dolphin Man had a good point. He said he eats fish and he doesn't like cat. Eat fish, doesn't like catfish, but they could be great for trading. I think that's if you have a use for that in your system. Because you're doing something else, like if you have a use for the bottom feeders, then absolutely, that's a great option. But you can, and that's a great differentiation because you'll know your yield and you'll say, okay, I know I have this much without affecting my food source.
Yeah, exactly. And they would have to stay small, so that that's the problem. They would have to stay small and just live off the excrement of the fish, because I wouldn't want them getting so big where they start eating the babies, because now the babies are an extra income for our homestead, because I sell the babies, and of course it supplies us with food too. So and I sell the adolescents. So it's we sell the live fish, but if you want to come get a full-grown fish, I have to sell it to you alive. So.
Yeah, right. Teresa asked, is ick ever a problem? Could you tell everyone? Maybe they don't know what ick is, and it hasn't been a problem in your system.
It hasn't been a problem in the system. I haven't got mine circulates too much. It filters too much. It's too much water for a single bacteria to take hold of. Plus, I have snails and like I said, the water plants.
Yeah, the water plants are probably huge in that.
Yeah, they filter out everything that comes through. It's like a giant Berkey filter on my system. So
yeah, that's great.
And so, but yeah, I'm the only one that's doing that. Everybody else thumbs down, that on the bigger aquaponics, because they want you to go out and spend, like
$20,000-$30,000
on a system, but you can do it for $300, and there you go.
Well, I would definitely keep an eye out for the ebook that we're going to put together, because that's going to allow, that's something great is I see it here. I know it's working because I've watched Daniel's shows. And now all I have to do is follow these steps, and it's going to work for me.
Yeah, exactly. And we're probably really over our 30 minutes. So
3:49.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and end the show here. But if any questions, feel free to contact me, because I don't mind answering emails. We get, I get roughly, is it okay to tell how many comments I get?
Sure. Yeah.
In 28 days, I get roughly 8,000 comments, and I try to answer all those. So
it's hard. It's like a full-time job. Just
Yeah.
getting back to everyone.
yeah,
But now you also do consultations, right? Like somebody wants to do, if they want to call you and say, please help me, I need to set up my system, they can call you and you'll walk them through like the shopping list, the setup, probably even set up some stuff for them as far as the consultation goes and ship it out.
yeah, and you know, being on Homestead, you know, we don't get to talk on the phone much. I was talking to Dirt Patch Evan this morning, and you know, so I have a tendency to talk too much. That's my buddy Big Bear.
Family Ruth asked, do you ship and sell the babies live?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want live babies and Daniel has them, just email them and see.
Yeah. Now we're on a waiting list, so you have to get on a waiting. You have to get on the list because we maybe produce 8,000 babies a year, so you know they go quick. So,
But don't think just because you're on the list you won't get them, because
Yeah.
fish might put out way more than you have on the list.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, but you most like 99.99%, unless some kind of tragedy happens, which I doubt very seriously, you'll get your fish. You'll be on the list of when you get them. So
Yeah. Two good questions. Family Ruth Farm asked, when will the ebook be out? Our projection and the work that we're putting into it now, we're looking at probably 2 to 3 weeks is what we're looking at. So very soon you can start kind of you know, putting away a little bit, and when that ebook comes out, be ready to go to the store and get your parts.
yeah, exactly. And we'll be able to build the system.
The other part was, do you ever raise carnivorous plants to help with airborne pests, or you know, mosquitoes or flies or anything like that?
Well, that is something that I would really love to get into. I'd like to get those pitcher plants. If anybody knows what they are, they would really handle my ant and aphid problem, and they would grow perfectly well in the aquaponics and the Venus flytraps. Of course, this time of year they will not grow. You know, just because they like completely humid,
Warm,
area,
humid, yeah.
warm, humid. But during the spring and summer, they'd be just fine in the system, and they would grow. But I use these aphid catcher traps, and you can see they're pretty loaded because aphids will fly. Ants will come carry them, put them on the plant. So usually a good spray with a hose will just knock them off, and they'll drown through the system. But then ants bring them right back. So yeah, I would love to find some carnivorous plants, and look forward to that videos of that this spring. So
Okay, good. Dolphin Member said thanks for the live stream. Bruce said they're beautiful and smell nice, but deadly to flying bugs. I guess some of the carnivorous plants.
yeah, and Dolphin Man, you can even ask Dolphin Man. When he called me, had a question, I was more than happy to walk him through all of his questions and help him out the best I could. I hope I helped him out the best I could. But if you need me, you know, I'm there for you. And so that's about it. I mean,
Charles said North Alabama here. Enjoy. Charles, make sure you set it in for the event that we're putting on in June if you're close. Yeah, and really from all our friends all around the country. We even have some that are looking to come from outside of the country just to come and see the wealth of knowledge that you're going to gain at the Homestead event. So look for big information on that coming soon.
yes. And what was the catchphrase you said about that? Learn how to survive.
Yeah, at the Homestead event, we're going to teach you the skills that you need to survive and that you need to thrive now and during the disaster.
That is just awesome, ain't it?
Yeah, so we're looking forward to it.
He's good, you know. And I'm so glad to have him on the Homestead. So
Glad to be here.
yeah. So anyway, guys, we're going to end the show there. Thanks, Brad, for coming. It's awesome, but
It's a good show, yeah. Glad we got to see that tilapia. That's great.
Yeah, it got me under the fingernail. It's Chinese torture test. You know, right under the fingernail is one of the pins. But that's my perfect.
So one quick one before we walk out. Suburban Hillbilly said a carnivorous plant bog would be not only a great schooling project for your daughter, but it would be a great project for everyone to follow along with to add that into their aquaponics system.
Oh yeah, this definitely 100% this spring we will be doing that. So because thank you, Teresa, for the idea, and I'm going to write it in my notebook of things to do. And but anyway, guys, we're going to end the show here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming to my new time, so I don't have to be up so early in the morning.
And cold in here in the morning.
Yeah, cold in the morning.
Yeah, no matter how much colder it is outside the greenhouse, it's a little cold to be excited in the morning.
Yeah. Dude. All right, guys. Ani Ove Ota means I love you in Hebrew. All right, guys.